ever have a day where the rules, the uniforms, the seats, none of it really matter, because someone's already decided where you belong the second you walk through the door? That's how my story started, on a flight that should have just been routine, should have been another day, another mission, get in, get out. Nobody notices the person in RB except maybe to ask if I want a drink or a pillow, you know. Except this time, that seat was an invitation for a whole different kind of turbulence, and I promise you, it wasn't the weather. Let me back up a sec. I just wrapped up the longest 9 months of my life tracking a terrorist financing network that nobody on cable news will ever hear about because, you know, when you do your job right in my line of work, the real story is what doesn't happen. And all I wanted was to get to London, give my briefing, maybe order a real breakfast for once, and sleep for 6 hours straight. But from the moment I stepped onto that Liberty Atlantic flight, I felt it as on me, not because of who I was, but because of who they thought I couldn't be. The pilot's boots clacked down the aisle, echoing like a gavel, and I saw his shape behind me in the window, broad, confident, just a little too aware of himself. He paused by my seat, didn't say a word, but the pause lasted just a heartbeat too long. That's a language you learn if you look like me and you move in spaces like this, first class, the boardrooms, anywhere they think you need a reason to be there. The woman in pearls a few seats up, the CEO with bourbon and spreadsheets, the kid with earbuds who couldn't care less, each one fit the scene in a way I never could, even after all these years. My mother used to say, it's not always what you carry, it's who thinks you shouldn't be carrying it. That stuck with me. And I carried that too, right along with my badge, my ID, and the battered copy of Meditations I always kept for long flights. Taylor, the flight attendant, tried to play it by the book, offered champagne, flashed a smile, but I saw the surprise when I read her name before she had to say it. She softened after that, just a touch, like, maybe I'd proved I belonged. But it's never that simple. Because some people, no matter how hard you try, can't see past what they expect. And on this plane, the expectations weighed heavier than the jet fuel. I lost myself in my book, tried to get back that sense of control that comes from just breathing, reading a line about how you only control your own mind, not the world around you yet. Marcus Aurelius always knew how to cut to the bone. The next thing I know, Captain Redmond, because of course that's his name, comes back, all authority and easy charm, shaking hands with half the cabin like it's his own private club. But when he got to my row, something flickered in his smile, something just for me. He asked for my boarding pass. Not politely. Not with any real interest in procedure. He asked because he needed to show me and everyone else who really had the power in that cabin. You know what I mean. He made me dig out my ID, stared at it way too long, then told me I looked good in the photo. Said, pretty girls like you, you'd be surprised what people do for comfort they haven't earned. Quiet, but not quiet enough that the people around us missed it. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he snapped my license in half deliberately, loud, so everyone could hear. Dropped it in my lap like he just solved a problem instead of creating a new one. There's a kind of silence that's worse than yelling. That's what filled first class. People shifting in their seats, pretending not to watch, hoping it'd go away if they stayed out of it. Taylor tried to apologize, told me he's not usually like this, but isn't that always what they say? The flight went on. Redmond came back again, this time with a new line of attack. Accused me of using someone else's points to buy my seat, wanted to know what I really did for a living. His words were for me, but his show was for the audience, hoping to see me break, lose my cool, confirm everything he believed about who deserves to sit up front and who doesn't. That's when the twist landed. Bernard Holbrook, the quiet man in 3A. The one with the newspaper and the air of a guy who's seen 1,000 corporate standoffs, suddenly spoke up. He didn't shout. He didn't make a scene. He just told Redmond to sit down. Said he was making a fool of himself. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted. Taylor stepped forward, Bernard folded his arms, and suddenly, Redmond realized the cabin wasn't on his side anymore. But you want to know what really ended it? I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to make a scene. I reached into my bag, pulled out my federal badge, flipped it open right there for the whole cabin to see. I told Redmond, the crew, and everyone listening that I was a special agent, Department of Homeland Security, authorized to inspect, secure, and under federal law relieve any pilot who interferes with my duty. And just like that, the man who thought he owned the sky was grounded. I formally relieved him of command, handed authority to the first officer, instructed Taylor to treat the broken license as evidence. The cabin watched it all unfold in a hush you could feel in your bones. From that point on, Redmond wasn't the captain. He was a man in a uniform with no power left, buckled into the jump seat, staring at the runway as London's lights approached like the end of a dream. Passengers avoided his gaze. Taylor moved with new confidence. Even Bernard went back to his newspaper, knowing justice had finally shown up at 37,000 feet. The landing wasn't a victory lap. It was a reckoning. Law enforcement waited on the tarmac. Redmond left the cockpit for the last time, hat in hand, no longer the hero of his own story. Taylor began disembarking the passengers, and that silence, the kind that follows real consequence, stayed with every person as they left the plane. In the terminal, Taylor admitted she'd never seen a captain stripped of his wings before. He wasn't stripped, her coworker told her quietly. He gave them away. Back in London, the consulate debriefed me. I gave my statement, outlined every moment, every abuse, every witness. Monroe, my director, told me this wouldn't stay quiet. That it couldn't. I told him I wasn't interested in containment. Good, he said. Because this is about more than a flight. It's about the pattern. And back in New York, as word spread and images leaked, the chairman of the airline called me personally not to fix the PR, but to promise change. I told her it wasn't about headlines. It was about reckoning with a system that lets power go unchecked until someone stands up and says, no more. So here's the part that matters. I didn't win anything on that flight. I did what I had to do. For the mission, for myself, for every person who's ever been told they didn't belong. I didn't shout, didn't rage, I let the truth and the law do the talking. But that silence, that wait, that pause before the next headline, that's where real change starts. And now I'm asking you, what would you have done in that cabin? Would you have spoken up? Sat in silence? Did Redmond deserve what he got? Was justice served? Or just another headline on a cycle that keeps spinning? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about power, dignity, and what it really takes to change the culture at 37,000 feet. If this story made you feel something, leave a 1 in the comments. And if you want more stories where the quietest strength outshines the loudest voice, subscribe, because sometimes justice doesn't just land, it takes flight.